girl, I'm Jen Parker. Welcome to the Hey Girl podcast. We're so excited you're here today. For this episode, Bethany interviews Hanne Larson. Girls, you do not want to miss this interview. Hanne is a woman who is just amazing. Her and her husband started this awesome ministry, and her life and just the things she's learned will speak to your heart. They spoke to my heart, and you will just be blessed to hear this. So thanks for tuning in.
I'm super excited to introduce you to Hanne. She is a woman that has been in my life for quite a number of years. And who knew that then years later, I would end up going to church with you all, getting to be a youth pastor for your kids, just so many cool things. So I know a lot about you, and I've been honored to know you, but our listeners, I'm sure, would be so blessed to know more about you. So Hanne, can you tell us a little bit about your story, who you are?
Thank you, Bethany. I have to say, when you invited me, it was an absolutely yes, because I love being with you. So I grew up in Denmark, and actually my parents were the directors of Child Evangelism Fellowship in Denmark. My mom went to Denmark as a missionary on her own, met my dad there. She married a native, and so I grew up there and graduated from high school there. But when I was 15 years old, I was actually at a church service in Michigan because my parents would come for my mom's furlough. I was at a missions conference, and the guy who spoke just really gave a call to giving your whole life for full-time service. And when he was done speaking and he gave that invitation, I just shot out of my chair, and I just knew that God was calling me to some kind of full-time ministry. So after I graduated from high school in Denmark, I needed to go to like a Bible school or something for some training. And in Denmark, there are no Bible schools. So I worked for a year and a half to save up enough money so I could go to a year of Bible school over here in the States. Fast forward a little bit, because while I was in college, in Bible school, I transferred to a 4-year college. I was really praying for God to just show me what kind of ministry he was actually calling me to, because I knew I was preparing for ministry, but I wasn't sure what. But it was on a Thanksgiving break that I went with a friend of mine to Chicago, and her family was from the suburbs of Chicago, and they took me on the elevated or the train in Chicago down through the south side, because they knew that a girl from Denmark would have never seen anything like that. So we took the train through this really rough area, and while we were on the train, I felt like I heard God speak to me and say, "Hanne, these are the kids." And so at the next train stop, I ran out, I took a picture, and when I got back to my dorm room, I put it up on my wall and said, "Lord, send me." And so I started just praying about how was I going to minister to these kids, or these at-risk kids. Turned out, it's a very long story, but I ended up working with inner city kids in Minneapolis after I graduated from college, and I had majored in social work and Bible. But while I was doing that, I really felt like I knew I was called to a neighborhood, and I was working with high school and junior high girls in a kind of a neighborhood ministry. Okay. But my supervisor said to me he wanted me to start a Bible study in lockup in the juvenile detention center. And I didn't know that God had called me to that. Plus, it seemed really like outside of what I would feel comfortable doing. Yeah. And so I said, "I don't think that's what God said." and he said, "Well, I really need you to do this. I really need you to start this Bible study." And so I still remember it was a Sunday night, and I was driving down 35E in St. Paul Minneapolis, or St. Paul, Minnesota, and I was crying. And I cried out to God, and I said, God, I can't do this. And I felt like I just heard him like speak right out of the sky and said, Hannah, I know, but I can. And that night I went in there, 34 kids out of 36 had signed up to come to Bible study. Wow. And it was a co-ed detention center. Here we sat in a great big circle, and I was it. Wow. And God's Spirit fell on the place. It was like unbelievable. Wow. And when I drove home that night, I was crying harder than I cried on the way down. and I said, God, I'm doing this the rest of my life. Oh. And so here we are 36 years later. And I'm still doing that, but in a different location now. We live in New England. But anyway, I didn't meet Scott till I was almost 30. I got married 3 weeks before my 30th birthday. And so for 6 years, I worked in Minneapolis with both inner city kids and the kids in lockup. And I knew that was God's call in my life. So I met Scott, and he ended up going to seminary at Gordon Conwell. So I needed to move here after we got married. Yeah. And so I was going to join a ministry that was going into the juvenile detention centers out here. But come to find out, there were no ministries doing that. In fact, the state didn't allow any spiritual programming for the kids who were locked up. And they had gone to a really like therapeutic model. So God's timing was absolutely, of course, perfect, because a month before I moved out here, a guy had been hired to try to get volunteers into the system for the juveniles, because they had kind of let everybody, kept people out because they just wanted the therapist with the kids. But they had hired a guy who still had not gotten any volunteers. So I got to actually meet with him, and I said, I can help you get volunteers into the system, and I'd like to start by doing a Bible study. And he said, you can't do a Bible study, but you could maybe do, some tutoring or something. I said, well, we have connections with churches, even though I didn't have too many right then, but
talk a big game.
Help get people into, and so anyway, he said, well, I'll set up a meeting for you to meet with a treatment director. This was in Westborough detention, secure detention for boys. And I went and met with him and shared with him that I'd like to start a Bible study for the guys. And he said, well, are you going to use the Bible? And I said, yes. And so he said, I don't know. He said, maybe, we could call it something else, because I don't think any guys will come if we call it a Bible study. And so I said, well, how about we start calling it a Bible study, and then if nobody shows up, we can change the name. So that next week, he was allowing me to come in, and it was a small detention center for 15 boys, and 12 out of 15 had signed up for Bible study. So that was really the beginning. This is now 30 years ago, actually. July 10th, it'll be our 30th anniversary. And since then, God has just opened amazing doors. All over Massachusetts, all over New England, and now way beyond New England.
I love that. I'm getting like goosebumps every time you say when you start a Bible study.
I know.
Just awesome to hear how God moves, and it's like most of those kids. Talk about like revealing a need in kids who are just searching.
Yeah.
But so I know, because I know you, and I actually probably don't know all the details of this story, but your ministry definitely expanded beyond going into prisons. And I know vaguely of a house that you lived in. Could you tell our listeners a little bit more about that side of what you did?
Yes. So about 4 years into it, at the time, Scott and I didn't have children. And in fact, we didn't think we were able to have children. But we started seeing guys and girls, but there are way more guys locked up than girls, who really had a transformational experience with their faith in God and really wanted to grow in their faith. And then they would get out and they would just struggle, and there was not the support that they needed. So we always tried to kind of hook them up with somebody, but we remember especially a boy, his name was Thomas, and he was 16, and he had, really given his life to Christ, and he was going back actually to Cambridge and had come to us and said, I really want to go someplace where I can grow in my faith, and because I know if I'm going to go back to my same neighborhood, I'm not going to make it. And so we said to Thomas, well, we'll look into something. And so we actually started making phone calls if there was like some kind of a group home, some kind of a place that a 16-year-old boy could go. And there was actually nothing in New England where someone under 18 could go like that. And so we went back to Thomas and said, we'll try to connect you with the church, we'll pray for you. So Thomas got out, and it was like 2 or 3 weeks later that we were going up in the elevator to the detention center, and the staff said, did you read about Thomas? And we're like, no. And they said, well, it was in the back of the Boston Globe that he was found shot in the back of the head by a rival gang. And so we just felt like this can't really be, God, that there's no place for kids who really want to grow in their faith to go. And so we started praying that God would raise up a home for kids. And he ended up saying, you guys are the ones. And so God provided in incredible, miraculous ways. He provided a home in Westborough for us to take in boys that came out of lockup. So we could have between 5 and 7 boys at a time. And we did that for 9.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And while we were there, we had 2 babies, which was so amazing because we would have never in a million years thought it would be a good idea to have that home if we had had babies. And so God, in his amazing wisdom, had us not have them before. And then when we had them, realized, oh my goodness, they were such a gift to the home, because there was something about having the boys hold the babies and just them feeling like we trusted them, and it'd break down barriers. And sometimes when things were tense, which they sometimes got, there's nothing like a little kid to kind of break the tension. So it was really an amazing thing.
It's like live little stress balls.
I
Relieve
know.
everyone's stress.
Yeah.
And I am very blessed to know those 2 babies that are not babies anymore. And we won't totally embarrass them on a podcast and lay out their lives. But I just know from where I stand, and I mentioned at the beginning, but I've had the chance to have both of your kids in student ministries and watch them grow. And it's amazing to me now, they both graduated high school. Just being able to see the fruit of those experiences in their lives, and just the incredible gifts of mercy and love. And I mean, I say it all the time, but your kids are they're like my own kids. And I mean, they babysat my own kids, now that I think about it. That's crazy.
Oh, my.
But I absolutely, it's been an honor to get to know them. But I love just being able to see kind of the end of that. They were born. And you said, and I think that's fair. Like, I'm thinking as a mom, it's one of those, you probably wouldn't choose that for them. But then God kind of knows best. And he sets it up, and then they're born into that. And it's an incredible story. You've officially had me crying like twice already, so thank you for that. But I would love the chance to ask you some questions to kind of talk about the now in your life and where you're at. It's amazing to hear just how God began this ministry that you and Scott have had such a part of, Straight Ahead. And I think even the story of Thomas and is heartbreaking that is how even God has used Thomas's life. I just think about how many lives his life has saved. Yeah. And I'm probably most emotional because I just think, obviously, my own brother, it hits close to home that what it meant for him. Man, I am going to be choked up. What it meant for him to have that chaplain in there in just really dark year. That was a dark time for him, and for somebody to just invest in him and love him. And as a sister, and like you want your siblings to be okay, and to know that there was someone in a place that we couldn't be there with him, just loving him like Jesus loved him and pointing him back to Jesus. So before I get to questions, I guess just thank you guys. Thank you for taking a call and listening to Jesus. And I love the beginning of the story when the guy first approached you and you're like, no, I don't think that's it. Right. So I'm just glad that it's gone the way that it's gone. And I love that our paths have crossed, and in just so many different ways. But this time in your life, as we think about this season of your life, and I mentioned your kids now have grown and graduated. Why don't you just real quickly tell us where are your son and daughter now?
Yep. So they're both in college. Sarah's in Chicago, and she's graduating in May with a nursing degree, and is hoping to eventually end up in India. She went in January and will go again this summer. But that's really been her heart, to do nursing in a place like that. But for right now, she'll stay in Chicago and get some experience and that, but really has a heart for God and for people. And David is also graduating in May. He was speeding up the process and is graduating in 3 years.
Which is a pattern for him.
Yes, he graduated early from high school too. But God really actually used the very first mission trip that he went to with Bethany, you, to Maine, and God called him out in a church basement. And gave him the verse, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard what God has prepared for those who love him and are called according to his purpose." And he actually ended up getting it tattooed on his shoulder. But it was really, David was 14 and was struggling. And I know he shared a lot with you, and really felt alone, and he was very bullied through school. But it's the first time that he really felt God calling him out and saying, "I know you, David, and I have something for you, and you have no idea." And that was really the beginning for him. But then God has continued to really form that in him, and especially a heart for those who've been the most outcast, because that's how he felt growing up. And he actually says that he feels like when he first saw actually the Boston bomber and his face on TV, that his heart just went out to him, even though that seems kind of a little bit crazy. But there was so much, he felt like there was so much hatred, and God just really put in his heart to minister to young guys who are being recruited to ISIS. So he's actually moving to North Africa and is going to do work there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So David heading out on the mission field, Sarah going into nursing, which means mom and dad have an empty nest.
Yes.
And the birdies are gone. But a quick question for you, just in regards to your kids, like you mentioned, neither of those places are close by. And
Yeah.
Even just the little bit that you're able to share about David, that's not necessarily what parents would define as a safe destination. How do you do that as a mom? Like, how do you release your kids and just send them to where, like you mentioned, I'm just thinking about your call, and I don't know your parents, but I can imagine when you first called home to say, oh, by the way, I'm going to go into lockup and minister to kids in lockup. And now here you are as mom, and your kids, your son, by the way, I'm going to go minister to young men being recruited for ISIS.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is. And I think this is one of the things that I would say God has been so gentle with me in preparing me for things that my kids feel called to, because actually I remember exactly where I stood in my kitchen when David, he had been on a mission trip to Guyana, and it was right after that he called and said, I feel called to, move to the Middle East or North Africa to minister to young guys being recruited into ISIS. And I froze like I was standing at the island in my kitchen, and the words that came out of my mouth were, David, I know you will go wherever God calls you to go. But inside, I was going, no! I was screaming inside. And I went to bed that night feeling a little shaken. I don't think David had any idea. And then the next morning, literally on my couch with God walked me through the Abraham and Isaac story in such an amazing way that I actually got to right there on my couch offer him up, and then God provided a ram in the joy he gave me. Like, it was like unbelievable. The joy and excitement, which doesn't always come like that, but as I laid it down and I got out my my laptop and was like researching places and ministries he could go with, so it's just like, and I haven't honestly had at all any fear since. And he was in North Africa last summer, and I can't even like grab fear but not that it won't ever come, but God really gave that as a gift.
That's incredible. I love it. So with David in North Africa and Sarah for now in Chicago and soon in India, which I am actually praying that she will adopt many, many Indian babies.
Yes.
So you and Scott, you're here. What's going on now for you? What does this season look like for you?
Yes. So this is definitely a season of transition for us.
Yeah.
So the ministry has been 30 years.
Wow.
And we are not as young as we used to be, and really very deliberate about seeing God raise up the next generation of leaders, which is an amazing thing. And at the same time, a kind of a destabilizing season a little bit. So for me, I've been so very involved in every part of the ministry, and knowing that I need to take a little bit step back to make room for others is a really, really amazing thing. And yet when insecurity comes up in me, I don't always know how to do the dance. And so there are days when I feel like, oh, I'm just going to stay away, which is not what God has called me to do. But that's, out of insecurity, like, because it's uncomfortable to do the dance. So I'd rather maybe I'm going to do something. I'm just going to stay home. But then, I think what God has really called me to. Are you willing to stay in, even if it is uncomfortable, and learn how to give and take, and be available for people, but not be the one running the show necessarily. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but
it makes painful sense. I am feeling that right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I get that. So that's interesting. That description you're giving of this is a kind of time of, it's not always the same. It's like you mentioned, sometimes it's stepping in and stepping back. Do you have what does a day look like for you in ministry right now? Just the way that things are.
It's a very unique stage for me because I have no days that are alike. The things that are the constant for me that I really love and get a lot of joy in is like discipleship one-on-one with younger staff women, especially 2 that have come up through the ministry. That's like the ultimate for me. And seeing them really step in. I have no trouble stepping back and letting them lead because it's kind of like your kids, right? Yeah. So you're just like, it makes you more excited. And then the other part that's a constant is going into the girls' lockup, which that's one of the most amazing things that I get to do. And just a couple of weeks or a month ago, there was a girl that came into the Bible study, and we were sitting around. The topic was hurts that day, and she was very engaged, really opened up about a lot of hard stuff. But then when the discussion kind of got to a point where it was time to bring out the Bibles, I kind of throw them around kind of the table, and she took the Bible and just pushed it as far from her as she could, and she said, I do not believe in God. So I just said, you know what, that's okay. Let's, you can just listen in and we'll have, the conversation. So we were talking about the woman at the well that day. And afterwards, we go around and we hug the girls. And when it was time for me to hug her, she stood back and she looked at me. Her eyes were full of tears. And she said, I didn't believe, but now I think I do. It was just like this most amazing moment. And then the next week, she asked if she could have a Bible. And the third week, she said, can I write in the Bible? Can I highlight the Bible? And then last week, I got to sit down with her one-on-one at her home. She called me after she got out. She's on an ankle bracelet and wants to do a Bible study at her house. Wow. So it's like, those are the things, like if I could just fill my days with those.
Yes.
Love that. But anyway, you asked me what my daily, I don't have normal. I'm in a lot of like leadership meetings type of stuff, but I don't necessarily have to go to the office every day right now. Yeah. So I get to in the morning ask God to give me invitations of what He wants me to step into, which is like a real privilege. So
that's good though, because you kind of gave if I could fill my days, this is what it would be. But like any season of life, there's the things that we would all love to fill our days with. And then there are the things that creep in that are maybe not our favorite. So what, for you right now, what are some of the greatest challenges of this season of life?
I think it actually is what I mentioned before. Knowing how to, well, not knowing how to, but to let go of my insecurity of, I think probably one of the things that I get concerned about is if people think that, Hanne is overstepping or Hannah's doing what she shouldn't be doing, like hate that thought, so then I become insecure and am too preoccupied with myself. And that's the most challenging for me, is to just be open to maybe even having people think that I'm doing what I'm not supposed to be doing, and be okay with that. Being okay with not being popular.
Oh.
Kind of like junior high.
Yes. It's like you never get out.
You never get
There's always a
out.
little bit that follows.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's shift gears a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because I'm actually really excited to hear your answers for this, because I don't know if we've talked about this in recent days anyways, which you are somebody that I have always admired and looked up to, and just your journey of faith. And but I also know that though there are highs and lows in that journey, you just are someone that to me is such a deep well, and roots that are not shallow, and just a real relationship with God. So what does it look like for you on a day-to-day basis to learn and grow? Like, what are the ways that you're getting to know God, that you're spending time with him, whether it's reading, prayer times, whatever it is? What does that look like for you right now?
Right now, and has been since my children were babies. First thing I do in the morning is go to my coffee pot.
Amen, sister.
And then I get to go and sit with God for about an hour every morning. And what I do during that hour, well, right here on the table in front of me is actually my utmost for his highest. I've been reading that for about 35 years every day.
Really?
So I always start with my utmost. You would think I have it memorized by now, but there's just nuggets in there that just speaks to me and challenges me.
So good.
Continually.
good.
So anyway, I always start there. And then I go through whatever different seasons of reading through a book in the Bible or other kinds of at different seasons. I've actually gone through the Beth Moore workbooks as a Bible study in the mornings. And
Do you have a favorite? I'm curious. Of Beth Moore's.
Breaking Free, honey.
Yeah.
Oh my. That's what I'm using for discipleship right now with the 2
Really?
young women that I'm discipling. Is like,
So good.
oh my. But I keep saying I said it to Olivia just the other day, this is my 4th time doing this. So, and I'm still not broken free.
Yes.
There's just more and more layers, more and more layers.
So it's an onion.
Yes,
It takes time.
It's an onion.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So.
And then I have a prayer time and I journal.
Oh,
Yeah.
yay. Mm-hmm. I'm a big journaler too. I like
Yeah.
that. So in journaling, are you somebody that has like a ton of journals, like just collected?
Yes, I do. And in fact, so I've kept them from the beginning.
Yeah.
But I have told my kids that they're going to be burnt when I die. Because this is not the place to find nuggets of gold. This is the place to find my deepest, darkest thoughts and how God kind of talks me through it.
Oh, so this is not an utmost for his highest.
Nope.
This is an utmost for her lowest.
This is right. But he
Gotcha.
does bring me, I mean, it's amazing how much journaling, like I can start out, going, I don't know why I was so angry when I went to bed last night at Scott, but there's something that triggered inside of me. God, just reveal what's going on, that kind of stuff. And so it's just been really, really important to me. But I was just telling Olivia, because we were going through, actually today, we were doing the Breaking Free, and it's one of my old workbooks that I'm using.
Yeah.
So the way I answered this was from when we were in the discipleship home, actually.
Wow.
Which is a long time ago. We moved out in 2000.
Oh my goodness.
Honey, yeah. So, yeah. Almost before you were born. No. But
That young.
but I had the answer to a time that I was going through a hard time, but I found joy, not happiness, but joy and distinguishing. And so I had written a little thing, and it was clearly from the discipleship home. And I said to Olivia, I'm going to go back and dig out my journal from that time to see what was actually going on with me.
Oh,
You know, so
you had it.
So I love that. I love that.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
No,
So-
that's very cool. And Olivia, just to clarify, she's one of the girls
she's
that
one of
came
the
up
girls.
through. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
She's incredible. I've gotten
Yeah.
to meet Olivia, so
Yeah.
she's amazing.
Yeah.
So not only are you a spiritual mentor and somebody I look up to, but we're going to get real.
Okay.
I have said many times, I've said this to your face, so this is not news to you, that I just want to be you when I
Yeah.
grow up, because nobody can see you. They can only hear your voice. But you are literally the cutest.
Oh my goodness, honey.
And always
sweet.
like stylish and like fit and trendy and fun. And okay, Jen's in the room. She can attest to this. Yes, 2 thumbs up to this.
You're
And
so
she just
funny.
met you.
Oh my.
So, but here's the thing. I am curious for you, because there's the spiritual side of caring for us. And then there's just taking care of our bodies
Yeah.
and our health and things like that. What does it look like for you what does it look like to be that? Please
Oh,
tell us.
honey.
And where is my notebook?
I
need to
really
take
wish
notes.
I could say something really great.
So what you're saying is it's just natural.
I eat halfway healthy, I would say.
That's good.
Pretty I do. I eat pretty healthy.
What is healthy for you?
Well, I think I don't overeat.
Okay.
And because actually Scott a couple of years ago had his triglycerides were high, so we cut out a lot of dairy and a lot of not
Okay.
so great stuff. But I mean, we still do we're not extreme in any way. Try to eat a lot of vegetables and fruit, and I eat oatmeal every morning. But now they have the cold oatmeal I get to make.
Oh,
That's the best. I refrigerated overnight.
that
With
La La Java
berries.
in
Yes.
town.
Have you
That's-
tried it?
Yes.
Honey,
It is
I
so
make that now
good.
every morning. The night before.
Okay, I
Honey,
need.
yes.
We will put this in the show notes. I
Yeah.
need a recipe for
I
that,
couldn't-
because
yeah.
the coffee shop we have close by. That's what I mentioned, La La Java. But first place I ever tried, the lady it was new, and she's like, "No, really, just take one and try it." And the thought of cold oatmeal was like so gross to me.
amazing.
But then I tried it, and I was like, "This is delicious." It's
Okay,
so
can I just
good.
tell you right now?
Yes.
A quarter cup oats,
Okay.
a quarter cup of yogurt,
Oh.
and a third cup of any kind of milk, almond milk, whatever.
Okay.
That's easy. You can remember that.
What kind of yogurt do you put in?
I put in vanilla Greek yogurt is what
Greek,
I had
okay.
today, but it could be any. It could
Doesn't
absolutely
matter.
be any.
Okay.
2 teaspoons chia seeds or whatever. Is that
Gotcha.
what it's called?
Yes. As long as you mean chia seeds, then
That's
yes,
what I do.
it's called.
They swell up like little black things.
Yes, chia seeds.
And then I put a little dash of cinnamon. That's
so
it.
good.
And then stick it, and then you have berries on top
Yes.
the next morning. Put
Yeah.
the best.
It's
Yeah.
it's
So
good
anyway,
stuff.
so that's how healthy
cold
I eat.
oatmeal is the secret to
Yeah.
your adorableness.
Yeah, and I don't exercise.
Okay, that actually kind of makes me sick.
Kind of. Well, me too. That's one of my
Well,
shoulds, but I don't.
it's okay. I'm broken right now, so I can't exercise, so I'm with you. But
Okay.
all right. Well, okay. Love all of that.
Yeah.
Though things are transitioning, obviously you have a full life right now. So one of the things that we feel very passionate about, just as a part of this podcast, is communicating to women that just about the seasons of life. And there are sometimes things that we may be gifted at, things that we can do that sometimes just have to go on the shelf. Like, this isn't the time. I always like to say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so I'm curious for you right now, is there anything that comes to mind that is one of those things, something that you're not doing right now, that this just isn't the season for that?
So actually for years, probably almost 20 years, I
Okay.
led a women's Bible study. And I haven't done that now for years, and it hasn't been really the season for it. But I'm starting to feel a little bit of a stirring again.
Yes. Because I missed that season, by the way.
But it hasn't really been the season. But then I think too, I really enjoy kind of artsy kinds of things. I actually started out as an art major in college, and it hasn't been this season so much for that. But actually, David said to me, we're moving this week to a lake. And David said to me, Mom, I picture you sitting out there painting. And I was almost like, painting? And then I realized, well, actually, I do enjoy painting, but I have not done that in years. So that might be something.
That would be so great. I can't wait to see your lake house. Yeah. And I can attest to your art, and it's kind of a unique way, but the house you were moving out of, you designed and worked with the builder, which is so cool. And the house is amazing. I would try and sell it, except you already did. Yeah. So, and I'm not surprised because it's a beautiful house. So I have one more question. Okay. And this is my favorite one because I feel like it helps you just break down any maybe ideals people have of like, wow, this is just like the perfect woman. Yep. But we all just have those things. And so what I'm wondering for you, when you think about yourself, what is the most superficial thing about you?
I would say, I remember I was going to do a talk or give a talk at a women's thing about self-image.
Okay.
And I had been standing in front of the mirror like for a really long time trying to figure out what to wear.
Nice.
Right? And I'm running down the stairs, and I'm running a little bit late, and I'm like halfway down the stairs. I go, no, I can't wear this. I can't wear this. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm giving a talk on self-image, and where it comes from, it has nothing to do with what you're actually wearing. So I'm just like, so I forced myself to not go back up, that was pretty good.
That is pretty good.
But those kinds of thoughts, totally like that.
That can be hard if you're somebody that does a lot from platform, I feel like. Because there's a certain level where you actually feel the pressure to be somewhat put together. So you didn't get to go to our conference last fall,
No.
Simply Beautiful.
No.
But one of the things that was funny, it had to do with the message, but I ended up, for the last session of the day, wiped off all the makeup, put the hair in a ponytail, changed into sweats. And it was really just meant to be kind of this, I was talking about the idea of us just being real for a minute. Like that even at these conferences, when we get up and we talk and we speak, like sometimes people can get the idea that that's just our everyday, that we're just always put together and that it's just not our reality. And so for me, I literally had like my favorite sweats on for that, like
That's
the ones
so
I wear
great.
all the time. And of course, that would be the thing that at the end of the conference, like so many girls coming up and what it meant for them. And I don't think I realized how important it is to kind of have those moments of, it's not all like the non-Instagram moments, the one where it's not all shiny and pretty. And
Definitely.
But I love mostly that you were going to talk about self-image.
Self-image, I know.
Well, you were just caring a lot about your image.
Yeah, which is right. So, but I think it does actually, the whole thing about caring, like one of the things that Scott and I actually talk about a lot, or not a lot, but just how much, for me, I can fall into wanting to be seen as good a lot more than want to be good.
Wow.
And that's pretty huge. It's a huge thing for me to reflect on of the motivation of my heart. And it really is. We went through a training like years ago, and And one of the things we had to do was stand in front of a small group and have them kind of give feedback of their first impression kind of thing of us. And it was kind of like a very naked kind of thing. But a lot of people, had some nice things to say or whatever. And there were probably about 30 people you had to stand in front of at different times, and they were just giving all this feedback. And then when you got to the end, you had to start writing and reflecting on what was said.
Yeah.
There was one person that said shallow. And when I got back to my seat, it was the only thing I could remember. Because it was just like, no. And as I was writing about it, I was realizing the fact that was so important proved the point of how shallow I am. Like, oh my goodness.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
then how do you, because that's gold. Okay. The idea of wanting, because I'm just now like, oh, that's so true. You want people's perception versus.
To not be that.
Yeah. So then how do you, like yourself, how do you fight against that in your life? Like to be really intentional, because the word that came to mind was character.
Yeah.
Like, what does it look like for you just to be very intentional about what matters most is my character, not what people perceive of me?
Well, I wish I had the perfect recipe for that, right? But I think it is to be willing to be super honest with myself and reflect back on the day before. I brought a thing of brownies to this person. What was I looking for? Or for me, like some of the things that, because I get to be around a lot of people who do have needs or whatever, and I catch myself, wow, why did I have to tell that person that I did that? Like, what if I didn't have to self-promote? Just kind of reflecting on the motives of my heart. And, we're human beings, but I think it's really healthy to kind of take a personal inventory and went through a thing last year that kind of as part of my journaling time was looking at the day before, and it was what was done out of fear, which is really self-promotion is done out of fear, right? You have to like me. What was done out of fear and what was done out of love. And just reflect on kind of my day. And there are there's only two options. So that's very revealing, because there are a lot of good that's done out of fear, quote unquote good.
Yeah. I'm totally going to start doing that in my journal. I'm not sure I'm ready for it, but I'm going to start doing that. Well, Hanne, it's been incredible to have you on here. Thank you so much for just giving your time and
Thanks
for sharing
for
your
having
story.
me. Super great.
That was my friend, Hanne Larson. And I don't know about you, but I definitely shed some tears during that interview.
I thought it was just so powerful. So many of the things she said just resonated with me so much.
So I have known Hanne for a lot of years, but this was your first time getting to meet her and getting to hear her story. So I'd love to hear, what are the things that really stood out to you?
So I loved that she so clearly heard from God when she stepped off that train in Chicago, and God was like, Hanne, these are the kids. And she was like, Lord, send me. And then how funny and how so true to life when her supervisor wanted her to start that Bible study in lockup. She was like, I don't know if God called me to that. And I think it's so true for all of us. Like some things were like, oh yes, like this moment, like I look at this point and like God so clearly called me to this. And then other times you're like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. But obviously those Bible studies in lockup was one small step towards this whole ministry that her and her husband have been doing for 35 years. Is that right?
Yeah, a lot of years.
So I love that realness of her and just being able to say that to us. I loved that. What else stuck out to you? Anything that you learned about her that you didn't know?
Yeah, so the part that definitely had me in tears was when she shared about the young man that needed or really asked them he needed a place to go. He had just come out of lockup. He had given his life to Christ, but home was not a good option for him. And so that just his story and them hearing about it in the newspaper. And then I just think about that kid's life, and it was this awful death and this obviously every parent's nightmare, but just how in the end, when you look back over all the years since he's passed away, how many kids' lives have been saved since then. Yeah. And I just find that so powerful. And I love Hanne and how real that's just her. Like whenever you have coffee with Hanne Larson, you just bring tissues because you know it's going to get real, and she's not someone that's just going to take your pad answer of no, I'm fine. Like you're going to go there with her, and I just really, really appreciate that about her. And I think probably the other thing for me with Hanne is her heart to equip and release the next generation. I love that. I love that she is walking that road and is just very honest about how painful that can be and how challenging it can be, but she's just so committed to it and how important that is for her. And as a, young to middle woman, I don't know where I fall, but as someone in that camp of, I am someone who has been greatly influenced and equipped by Hanne.
Well, and I loved how she said it's uncomfortable to do the dance. And I think a lot of times, how many of us think, oh, I feel uncomfortable. Maybe I'm on this side of it, but she's on that side of it saying, I feel uncomfortable too. And just, I love how she talked about, like, some days I don't want to do the dance, but I need to get in there. I'd rather stay away. And I just appreciated that so much. And yeah, it is something that I'm like, I want to take that away as just something to remember. Like when you're in transitions or stages, to just stay in the dance. I love that word picture.
So girls, I hope you were as encouraged and challenged by Hanne Larson's story as we were today. It's been such a blessing to know her, and even as we interviewed her, just to hear more of her story, and just a reminder to me that all of those moments in our lives where we say yes to God, we just never know the powerful impact that that's going to have in so many other lives. And ladies out there who maybe you're in that season of life and transition is a big word for you, I just pray over you today that this was an encouragement to you and just a reminder that the best is yet to come, that God still has a work for you, and that passing the baton and equipping and releasing the next generation, though it is difficult, is just part of your ministry and what God has called you to do. And for all of us, regardless of our age, may we all be looking out for those opportunities with people younger than us and coming up to really come alongside them and encourage them in their walk and in their journey. So again, we love to hear from you all the time. We love to hear from you. So reach out to us on social media. We got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're at Hey Girl Pod in all of those. And Jen and I are also, we have our own social media pages. So you can feel free to reach out to me, Bethany Needham, or Jen Parker, and we'll definitely friend you unless you look like a creeper in your photo. Then we'll think about it. But we love you, and we're so glad you listened today. Thanks for giving us your time. We hope you leave encouraged.
These are the kids. She's like, nope, hold on. Hold on, we got to, hold on. Andy, fix all this.
It's okay.
You think he can fix it, right? Like he can stop it where you talked?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Okay.